paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, guys and gals, spooks and specters, and all you creeping creatures that crawl through my nightmares. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted, and a special message for that nice young blonde lady out in Kansas. Don't look behind you. Just watch the show, okay? So, I have got a guest that is everything I want to be. He is the definition of paranormal vagabond. Denver Michaels wrote his first book or two a few years back and decided this is what he enjoys because he sold his house in Virginia, got an RV, and him and his wife are traveling the country checking out the paranormal. Is that cool or what? Now, that was my plan when I retired from police work, just to set up a base and then go out and check out haunted places, the paranormal, the weird and strange. But unfortunately for me, the economy did a downturn and it didn't work out that way yet. When things turn around, I'll be out there with it. But Denver Michaels has written several books, including Haunted Shenandoah, Strange Tales from Virginia's Mountains, which is incredible, by the way. Detours into the Paranormal. People are seeing something. That is an interesting book, and that's just a few. He's got a whole bunch of them. He's just, like I said, a paranormal vagabond, and I wish I could do that. We've got a lot to talk about. So let's bring on Denver Michaels. Are you sitting in an RV?
Yeah, no, this is my RV, my house. This is where I live.
I really wish I could do that because that would be perfect. I've went through your blog, and by the way, folks, if you ain't been on denvermichaels.net, wow, the blog is absolutely incredible. Really big on giants, and that is a part of the paranormal that is not been explored enough yet. It's really come out a lot in the last few years. Conspiracies, Bigfoot, Banshees, the Badlands Banshee. We got to hear more about that. Phantom hitchhikers, which is one of my favorite topics. Denver, how do you do that? How did you decide to chuck it all and go look for the paranormal?
It's something that I've always since I was a young man, really, enjoyed traveling. Of course, didn't really get to travel a whole lot back in my younger days, having small kids, not much money, and, just working all the time. But, I guess about 6 years ago, I decided, I really wanted to start writing. And, at that point, my kids were in their high school years, so they didn't need me to really, babysit them so much as I used to, things like that. And, as more time went on, it was really my wife's idea, to start RVing and sell the house. But, we just kind of made the decision several years ago after we wrote our last college tuition check. Screw it. We don't need as much money as we used to. Of course, gas and things like that are a factor with traveling. But really, with the kids out on their own, we can live on a fraction of the money that we used to. So we just did something crazy, sold the house, and you hit the road.
I actually retired and went out to Tombstone, Arizona, kind of the same thing. Just wanted to get out and see the paranormal stuff. And then COVID hit me like a baseball bat across the eyes. Places closed. Nobody wanted us to be in their places anymore without scuba gear. So how did you manage to get past that?
Well, like you're saying there, like a lot of places that I wanted to go, I couldn't really go. We were still traveling, and it was kind of a double-edged sword with COVID, right? Because a lot of your places, you couldn't go to, or else the restrictions were just so bad. It just wasn't even any fun, like even a lot of your outdoor stuff. And I'm not really trying to do a COVID commentary here, but, like even a lot of your outdoor stuff, they made you, wear a mask up on top of a mountain, and it's 90 degrees out, so just absolutely miserable, a lot of stuff. But on the other hand, a lot of places it's like holy cow, like nobody's here, because a lot of people weren't traveling and doing things. So a lot, it was, like I said, it was a double-edged sword. A lot of things were open, and the crowds were minimal. A lot of stuff wasn't open, and things that were open wasn't any fun. But I kind of really concentrated a lot more on my efforts, doing outdoors, things, and places that I wanted to see, national forests, national parks, more kind of things like that.
So, if I could ask, where are you at now in the country?
Hey, right now, I'm in New York, upstate New York. I guess that's considered upstate New York. I'm right on the shores of Lake Ontario. I can basically walk out and go swimming. And cool. Me and the wife have been up here for about a week and a half. We're kind of just decompressing here for a little bit before we hit our next big leg. We had just been in New England for about 2 months. We spent about a month and a half in Maine, did some time in Vermont, New Hampshire, and so we're just kind of chilling here for a little while before we start heading. Our next big leg is down in the Southwest, so we're kind of decompressing for a bit before we take off.
I couldn't imagine driving an RV through the Rockies. I've been through it with a Jeep many times. I cannot imagine doing it in an RV.
Well, it's I just kind of out in Utah, especially, man. I just going up and it's just like up and down, up and down, up and down. And, I was just like cussing this thing. I was like, man, I wish I would have splurged on the diesel. But now that diesels went up so much, I'm thinking I'm pretty smart now for not doing that. I'll just go up the hills real slow and get everybody all upset behind me.
Can you imagine trying to climb those mountains down in Utah, the Rockies, in an electric car?
Oh no, yeah, I wouldn't want to do it. And then if you did run out of charge, ain't nowhere to get one for a long ways out there. There just ain't much out there.
But if you make it to the top, you can drive a long ways.
That's true. But yeah, so there's some desolate country out there, and a lot of fun stuff out in Utah. I had a blast out there.
If you get through Arizona, you got to stop and see the thing. It's incredible.
Yeah, we did. We were the first time out there. We were coming from Las Cruces. We had just spent a good little bit of time in West Texas, and I just kept seeing these signs on the road. It's almost like those old Barbasol signs or whatever, like in the 50s. There'd be just these series of signs going down the road. I just kept seeing this. I'm like, what in the world is this? It's just like, it's incredible and it's amazing. And they've got like a big parking lot. Yeah. So, we pulled in there and checked it out.
You got a billboard with a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And then the next billboard has a UFO. The
Yeah.
next one has a ghost. The next one has an alien. And it's like, what in the hell am I looking at?
Yeah, it was really it's really I hadn't done any research beforehand. It was really the signs really that
Me
drew us
too.
in.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. But tell me, when you pulled into that lot, the first thing I thought of was that bar in From Dusk to Dawn.
Oh, yeah, that kind of crossed my mind. Yeah, it's like what's it's got that and it's really, I mean, it is just out in literally the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
It is just I mean, just like nothing out there, and you just pull in, and it's just well, what am I getting myself into here?
No kidding. Well, you have done so much research. We got to get into this because there's so much to talk about. But you're doing a lot on giants lately. Is that a topic that you're particularly interested in?
Yeah, a couple almost 2 years ago, I put out a book called Giants Men of Renown, and that's really been a lifelong fascination for me. I mean, going back to my days as a little boy in Sunday school, really, the tales of the tales of Goliath, the David and Goliath story. Every kid in Sunday school learns that, and
right.
For me, I really didn't care too much about the message that they were trying to convey. With God all things are possible. Da da da. I'm just like. There was really a guy that was 10 feet tall. That's like what really stuck with me from it all. And I mean, that fascination, I mean, still, I mean, I'm almost 50 now, and that fascination is still there. And the thing when you get with giants, you kind of touched on it earlier, but when you go down the rabbit hole of the giants, I mean, it gets into everything from conspiracies, right? With with the cover up of the discovery of giant bones.
Right.
In a lot of circles, you'll get into aliens. You'll get into the paranormal. A lot of people think the spirits of these ancient giants are what constitute demons today. A lot of people believe, and so you just get this whole you even you get into Bigfoot a little bit. Even there's just this whole intersection of all these different things with giants, and it's just really a fascinating subject as far as I'm concerned.
The legends, the most recent legends of U.S. military fighting them in Kuwait or Iraq or things like that. Do you put any stock into those stories?
Yeah, I kind of, I don't really know what to make of them. I just, it's one of those things, you either believe it or you don't. There's absolutely no way that there's, anybody's going to get any proof of it. It's basically just if you believe the guys that are selling the stories, then it's true. If you're, I just kind of, I'm just sort of on the fence. I'll say that. Is something like that possible? I think that it probably is possible because, even today there's, there's stories that in the remote reaches of, there's islands in the South Pacific, like in the Solomon Islands. There's tales of, giants still being alive today. So, I mean, I think it's possible. But again, those, stories where special forces did this and that. I mean, it's just impossible. It's just, if you believe the guys or gals that are telling the story, and really that's kind of all you're left with as far as proof goes.
Yeah, it makes sense. You also talk a lot about the Banshee, the Badlands Banshee.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post about the Badlands Banshee, and I had read a book, many years ago, and your listeners, they this is one that they can just like download off Internet Archive. It's digitized, but I think I'm probably butchering the title, but I think it's like Myths from Our Own Land. Charles Skinner is the author. But anyway, when I was out there, I just kept thinking about that story of the Badlands Banshee, and supposedly out in the Badlands, and this is another place, right? There's just like nothing out there. It's just
Oh yeah.
it's just wide open country. It's just an amazing place to be, and I spent some time out there last year. And I just kept thinking about that story at night, that there's this supposed banshee that haunts a butte out there. But the real interesting thing of the story that I thought was how occasionally this banshee, she's accompanied by this skeleton. There's like this skeleton that plays the flute, and he's just like if like in the old days, back in the 1800s, when this story was written, that supposedly, like, if people were playing music in a camp, he would like come and check it out and stuff like that. And I just really like those old tales like that. I think they're really cool. I think they're a lot of fun, and I don't know, those old stories. I think in a lot of ways they're a lot more fun than some of our tales today.
That almost sounds like a story from Manly Wade Wellman about Silver John and the ghosts of the Appalachians. I don't know if you ever read those stories, but
yeah, I'm not real familiar with that one, but the old stories. I don't know, they're just really cool, I think, and I often wonder, like, Is that the equivalent back then of like today's creepypasta type blogs and stuff you see on social media? And I think in a lot of cases it probably was, but I don't know, those old stories. I guess I'm kind of an old soul, and I sort of like those old tales. They just really have a cool place, I think.
That could also be an early version of Skinwalker or any of the other legends of today.
Yeah, sure.
Blend into that. Even what was that? Mel's Hole, and there's not Skywalker Ranch, but the other one,
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch out in Utah. Yeah, and I think that's really, there's nothing new under the sun. Like everything that we're dealing with today, people have already dealt with. They've already seen it, and I think things just kind of, evolve, or our perceptions evolve. As time goes on, so things are more relatable to, the time that we live in, I think.
Makes sense. Let me ask you about Bigfoot, because in your travels, well, every state has its own version of the Bigfoot, whether it's Momo in Missouri or the skunk ape in Florida or Sasquatch. Are you following those stories as you travel the country?
Yeah, I do, and I really try to spend as much time as I can, and visit as many places that have like a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Like, for instance, when I was up in Minnesota, way up close to the Canadian border, like in the Superior National Forest up that way, there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings up in those north woods. And I would get out in those woods and hike around, and see if I see anything that blew my skirt up as far as that evidence goes. Same thing. I spent most of the winter down in Florida, and I really put a lot of time into checking out areas like the Green Swamp that has tons and tons of. I mean, it's just so many sightings. It's there's got to be something to them, right. And I just really enjoy. I really enjoy that as much as anything in my travels is getting out in these wild places, and you just get such an appreciation for just even places in the East Coast, that they're not as wild and unsettled like out west, but there's still just so much. There's just so much land out there and so much room, and we just you just get the sense that we just don't really have any way of knowing what all could be lurking in these woods and wilderness areas.
Anyone though who has traveled through, say, West Virginia, when you get out past the bigger parts of it out towards the east, you're going back in time. It's like dinosaurs could be roaming in those woods, and you never know it because it is so dense and heavy and just an incredible place. There could be anything out there. Have you spent any time there in West Virginia?
Oh yeah, and I grew up in Virginia, lived there my whole life, and I lived down in southwestern Virginia, which is really just it's as remote as anywhere in West Virginia. And I've spent a good bit of time in West Virginia, and those mountains there, like you said, I mean, there could be anything. It's very sparsely settled. I mean, it's not like places in Utah where you're going to go for 20 miles without seeing anybody, but you might go several miles without seeing anybody. And it's just dense and thick and steep. And it's like those places that, something could be like, it's like just 100 yards away from you, and those real thick forests and everything. I mean, there could be anything, like literally like looking at you right now. And I'm just I'm just a big believer in we don't know what's out there, and there's so many stories of Bigfoot and mountain lions, and I'm sorry, but mountain lions, nobody will ever convince me that they went extinct in the East, because there's just so many credible sightings and things like that anything could be there. Yeah,
well, those things could travel 300-400 miles when they want to.
Yeah.
Well, I spent some time in West Virginia, hit the Flatwoods Monster, hit museum, and the new Bigfoot Museum. You just come back from a Bigfoot Museum, according to your blog, right? Somewhere?
Bigfoot Museum. Bigfoot. I don't think I've been to a Bigfoot Museum lately.
Or cryptid. Okay, maybe it was an older one.
I know what you're talking about on my blog. The International Cryptozoology Museum. Yeah, that's up in Portland, Maine. I just visited that, and I had actually been to that about 3 years ago, before I started traveling full time. Me and my son, we came up to Maine and New Hampshire to do some hiking, and visited then. And it's just like one of those cool places. So it's like, hey man, I'm within a 45-minute drive of here. I'm going to go again, because it's just that cool. And if you're into cryptozoology and things like that at all, and you find yourself within driving distance of Portland, Maine, I recommend that everybody go there. They've got just a very impressive collection of Bigfoot casts, and they got a lot of just a lot of real quirky things that you're not going to see anywhere else. It was a very cool experience to go there.
Last weekend I went to it was here in North Carolina, Lake Norman.
Okay.
And I had pictured it as like the lakes in Missouri, where there's towns that do anything to get tourists in. So if they've got a legend, they'll do, they'll post it on billboards all up and down the road. I was a little disappointed that nobody talks about the lake monster in Norman, as Lake Norman, as far as, they don't use it for advertising and to bring in tourists.
Yeah, they don't really promote it. That was, I've been to Lake Norman a couple times. back in my 9 to 5 days, I was down in Charlotte area, for some work. And yeah, I was really surprised that, like you said, most of these places, like up along Lake Champlain in Vermont
Yeah.
and New York, when I was just there a few weeks ago. I mean, like, there's like a Champ car wash. There's, like Champ's burgers, just everything is Champ. And there's just depictions of it everywhere. It's really not the same for the Lake Norman monster. Nobody really talks about it that much.
Yeah.
And they sure don't use it for promotion at all. That's kind of different. Yeah, it's kind of different.
Yeah, little towns I go through, I go out of my way to go to towns because they've got the Flatwoods Monster Museum. Flatwoods Monster was seen once in 1954, but this town just lives off of it.
Did you go to all those monster chairs when you were there?
No, I didn't know about them until later. I hit the museum, and I hit the Bigfoot Museum in town.
Okay, see, the last time I was in Flatwoods, neither of those museums had opened yet, but I don't remember where, but somewhere like in town, there's a place with like a big billboard, and they actually had like paper maps of like where the various for all your people listening, there's like all these chairs, and they're huge. They're like these massive, like almost like rocking chairs or Adirondack chairs or whatever, and they're all painted and designed in these different depictions of the Flatwoods Monster. And so, I mean, me and the wife, we spent a whole day just driving around trying to find all these things and taking our pictures at them. But it's really cool. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the I don't know if it's the town or the county's Chamber of Commerce that commissioned those chairs, which goes back to what you're talking about, how people in these towns really take advantage of their legends to draw people in.
Yeah, the town itself now has 2 festivals every year, and one is for the Bigfoot Museum, one is for the Flatwoods Monster. And the guy who runs one of them was telling me they get in this town of maybe 1,200 people, an additional 6,000 people come in for the weekend.
Wow, that's crazy.
But they're commercializing it. They're trying to get attention with it.
Yeah.
And then I go to Lake Norman, and like you said, I didn't even see a wood cutout. You put your face in. There was nothing. Yeah.
You kind of really, you really almost kind of have to be a nerd for lake monsters to really even know it exists, because there sure ain't nobody promoting it.
But you wrote a blog on 2 or 3 lake monsters, right?
Oh, I don't even know how many I've my first book was about lake monsters. And so on my blog, occasionally I'll post. I couldn't even tell you how many over the years on my blog that I've put up. I try to put some that, weren't included in my book, and then some that, I did include in my book. But I mean, they're literally like all over the country. You can find some sort of, lake monster tales. And, like, speaking of ones that I didn't put in my book, like, driving through Minnesota, Devil's Lake. A lot of people don't even know about the tales of that, but supposedly there was a lake monster there, at one point. And the lake, I think like in the 40s, it went almost dry and then kind of filled back up. But you don't hear any credible reports these days. But there was a time when, I mean, the newspapers were full of stories from there, and it's all over the place. You get those kind of tales.
On that topic, although not of lake monsters, but I remember when I was a little kid, I went with my cousin to a drive-in, and we saw The Legend of Boggy Creek, which scared the living hell out of me at that age. Now it's tacky. But that was based on a true story. That was not a true movie in any sense of the word, but it was based on a real story. And that little town still embraces the Boggy Creek legend.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I've seen like, people posting. I've not been there. It's like on my list when I'm out that way to be able to go to. But I see all kinds of people posting pictures when they're in the area, and I think they have like a big festival and stuff down there too. I've seen all kinds of people, posting pictures of like cutouts of this monster, and like just at like random gas stations and stuff. There's these depictions of the monster, and it's really cool to see. I think it's fun that places embrace these kind of things, and let's face it, like a lot of these towns, and I kind of got in a little bit of pushback for saying this, but so I won't name the specific town, but I wrote a blog, and I'm just like, there's no real reason to visit this place. And, I didn't mean it to, some people got a little bit butthurt that, oh no, there's tons of reasons to visit. And I didn't mean it to come across that way, but if they're being honest, right? Like me living in Winchester, Virginia, there's no real reason for me to drive 10 hours to this town unless I'm a nerd for aliens and monsters and that sort of thing. But, there's just not. And that was kind of what I was trying to say. I didn't mean to like hurt anybody's feelings or put their town down. But, a lot of these towns that we're talking about here, they're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, some of them aren't even anywhere near an interstate, so you almost have to try to go there, and I think it's really good that they promote them and bring people to town, if for no other reason than people are going to stop and get a tank of gas and grab something to eat on as they're going through. People that would otherwise never patronize the
never
business.
even drive through there.
Exactly. And
I go off the road to see this stuff.
That's same with me. So I think it's great, and it's great for these small towns, because small towns all over the country are just really a lot of them are really hurting. I mean, I see that so much as I'm traveling, how a lot of these little towns, man, it's like, God, they seen their best days were 30 years ago, and it's just really sad what you see.
But a lot of them just embrace the paranormal now because it's what they've got. Even if it's just one haunted place, or Mothman was seen here just before it hit Point Pleasant.
Point Pleasant, yeah.
It was here for a day. Let's throw a museum up and get some attention.
Yeah, and those those festivals and things. I mean, gosh, I don't even know how many people that Mothman Festival brings. I've never been to it, but I've heard that it's like you got to book your hotels and stuff like way out in advance and everything. And it's good to see, after a lot of those things got shut down with the COVID stuff, and it's good to see that everybody's kind of back to normal now and putting these events on again.
I heard a lecture recently at the West Virginia Ghost Conference, which was basically owners of haunted things. And they was telling me that it was the ghost hunters that kept a lot of these places going during COVID.
Oh, really?
Because they would rent the building. They, by nature, as a ghost hunter, you separate and, get into small groups, and you're not bunched up together. Yeah. And that's where a lot of their money was coming from, just because that was the only people they could allow in.
Wow. That's good. I didn't know that. That's actually good to hear that, some people were thinking outside the box like that and able to keep a little bit of money coming in. I know that, like I was like down in Savannah, Georgia during the, a real peak time for some of that, and it was just really too hard to really go anywhere to look in some of these buildings, or like I said, the restrictions were so bad that it just wasn't even going to be any fun, so I didn't bother with it.
No, like I said, I retired to do what you do, and I had to give it up. It's no fun.
Yeah.
If I got to
Yeah. I
wear
mean,
a mask and an oxygen tank, it's kind of silly to go in there with gear.
yeah. Yeah. I kind of look at it like, I'm out here messing with ghosts and Bigfoot. Like, hey, I just kind of take my chances by nature, so just let me do my thing. But,
2018, I retired from my full-time job, and I moved out here to North Carolina. I'm between Mount Airy and Pilot Mountain. And then I saw you had some stories about the mountains of Virginia, which is, I want to say 7 miles from here is the line. What should I be looking for? What should I be going to check out?
Oh gosh, there's just the mountains of Virginia just have a lot of cool tales, and growing up and spending my life, or either in the mountains or just a short drive, obviously, you got a good chance of running into a Bigfoot, mountain lion there, if you're into that sort of thing. But there's so many cool tales. I don't know if you're familiar with the Beale treasure, but supposedly there's in Bedford County. Nobody's been able to find it, but this guy, Thomas Beale, in the 1700s, supposedly buried just a priceless amount of treasure there in Bedford County, and so far nobody's been able to find it. There's been a couple shows on it. I think that what is that show that that guy Josh Gates does? You know what I'm talking about. The name, the name gets away from me, but he did a thing about it, and it's one of those real. A lot of people think it's a hoax, but a lot of people think the treasure might be there, and I who knows? It's one of those things that you'd like to believe that there could be tens of millions of dollars, in gold and silver, just sitting there somewhere in Bedford County. I mean, who knows? But other cool things in the mountains there. There's a really cool ghost town in Botetourt County. It's called Lignite. And you can, this is one that, anybody can really visit because it's on, there's not much to see, but if you're into that kind of thing, like I am, if you're into like abandoned places, stuff like that, it's kind of a cool place to go. And it's on national forest land. And, this is kind of a cool story in that, it's like an old iron mining town, like from, I think they closed up in the 1920s. It was short lived, but when they closed up, squatters, moved into some of the old houses and things in town, and eventually, by the 1950s, the Forest Service had taken over the land and pushed everybody out, and the whole town, the weeds grew up and all that, and it was almost like by dumb luck that this town was rediscovered. The Forest Service was doing a controlled burn like in the 90s, and after they burned out that area, they're like, oh, holy crap, there's chimneys and foundations and stuff here. And then I think James Madison University came down there, so their program, and kind of helped catalog everything. And then, they kind of went back and learned that Luke and Steele, owned this town, and it used to be just this real thriving iron mining town. And another cool thing, a lot of people don't even know. I mean, people that lived in Virginia all their lives, like me, don't even know that Virginia used to be like a huge iron mining hub. Most people don't know that, but it was a big time iron producer. They don't produce anything anymore, but it used to be a real big industry in Virginia.
And where I'm at, is there anything I should be looking for specifically other than Bigfoot and mountain lions, which really don't bother me? I mean, mountain lions.
Well,
I'm from Missouri. They were there.
Yeah, well, also like in Southwest, I don't know if they really go down into Carolina or not, but at least in southwestern Virginia in the mountains, you get a lot of a lot is maybe maybe not the best word, but there are some sheep squatch sightings. I don't know if you're familiar with sheep
Just
squatch or
heard that recently. Maybe it was on your blog, and I'm like, what in the hell is a sheep squatch?
Well, I mean, you can kind of use your imagination. It's like a combination of a Sasquatch and a sheep. It's one of those things that you kind of laugh about it, talking about it, but people have spotted as these it's like sometimes people see them like on all fours and sometimes standing up, but they're like standing up, they're like 7-8 feet tall. Sometimes they got like horns, and they're like the color of a sheep. They're like white or like a tannish color, and nobody really knows. They spot them in over in West Virginia too, and I've even heard. I want to say I've heard a couple sightings maybe down in Alabama, but West Virginia, southwestern Virginia is where I think maybe a couple reports from Kentucky's, like really where you see these or hear about these things. And, it's one of those things. I don't really know what to make of them. Some people think that it's maybe like an albino Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. I mean, you certainly have albino bears and things like that. So I mean, if Sasquatch exists, then I think it would certainly be plausible that there could be albinos. And also something interesting is in like southern West Virginia and southwestern Virginia, there've been a lot of reports of Bigfoot creatures that are lightly colored, like a light tan. It's kind of strays from the norm, but there are those reports of so I don't know if it's just like a localized variation in the color of their coats, like you sometimes get with bears. They can, like a black bear can actually be tan. A lot of people don't know that, but so I don't know if that's something going on or if it's just, I don't know, just some weird entity that's not even physical. I don't know what it is.
I just got to wonder how much wool you'd get off a 7-foot sheep squatch.
I believe you'd get a lot. I don't know if it would be very soft or I don't know. I don't know if it'd make a good sweater or pair of socks, but you'd get a bunch of it.
Might be a hair more dangerous than shaving them though.
Yeah, I don't think I'd try to test it.
Phantom hikers. There was one reported many years there in Missouri where I was. And they're everywhere, of course, from Resurrection Mary in Chicago, everywhere. Yeah. But you've done some work on that also, haven't you?
Well, there's one of the tales that I put in one of my books down, of course, your Phantom hitchhiker. That's a very recurring tale that's from all over. But one of the more interesting ones that not really a hitchhiker, but just a hiker down Grandfather Mountain down in North Carolina. Yeah. There is a phantom hiker, and this guy, like people see him quite a bit, and even in recent years. It's just an old man, and he just hikes on the trails around Grandfather Mountain, and will just kind of like appear and vanish, and people will pass him on the trail, and he never nods, never just kind of does his thing. And from what I've read, he's just he just has like instead of nice aluminum hiking poles, he just carries a big stick, and he's got one of those old school like canvas army bags across his back, and just looks like he just got work clothes on, just a real old school kind of guy. He doesn't have all this moisture wicking fabric like I wear. Just real old school kind of guy. And it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting story, I think, that people tell of him. And hikers, outdoors people, they encounter things sometimes. Just out on the trail, they just see some weird things. I've heard a couple stories. A person sent something they saw into me up on the Tuscarora Trail up in along the West Virginia line, up around my old stomping grounds. This person just kind of like materialized like in front of the trail, not far from them, just kind of like walked diagonally, just kind of walked diagonally across and just sort of disappeared. Just a weird, just a weird thing. And I was reading this one tale about a hiker that was I want to say he's around Edinburgh, Virginia, but anyway, it's just this hiker kind of like appeared in front of him, and we kind of kept pace with him for a while and then just sort of disappeared. And you get a lot of that, and hikers have a lot of Bigfoot sightings and things like that. It's you just never know what you're going to run across out in the woods.
Well, a few years ago, when the economy really started to turn, suddenly, and Grandfather Mountain was one that I had the experience in, you had to get reservations to even go in there because they're a very inexpensive way of taking a day trip or a vacation. So it was massively crowded. And I wonder if that is upping the number of sightings of these things.
I mean, it could be. I don't really know. The last time I visited Grandfather Mountain was back in COVID, and that's one of those things that they had a reservation system in place, and they only let I couldn't believe that this many people wanted to go there. I was going like on a random Wednesday, and they cap it off like at 1,500. I was like, 1,500 people on a random Wednesday. Holy cow. Because before that, I hadn't been to Grandfather Mountain since I was a little kid down in southwestern Virginia. And back then, I mean, maybe I didn't pay attention to it when I was little, but I sure don't remember that many people ever visiting Grandfather Mountain. But anyway, I went during the during the COVID time, and it was reduced even down from what they normally would let in. But like I said, I didn't have any fun because you had to wait in line to go across the swinging bridge. They had a guy there making sure you put your mask on, even though it was windy and 90 degrees or outside. And again, I don't want to get anybody mad with anything I'm saying here, but it just for me, that ain't no fun. So I didn't really have a good experience at Grandfather Mountain this last time. But yeah, I mean, people just flood to that place. I couldn't believe it. And so yeah, certainly if you got that, if you got 1,500 people a day during the nice warm months going up there, that, to me, that would certainly contribute. The more people are out there, the more people are going to see things, because ghosts, unlike an animal, you can run out, Bigfoot might get out of town if there's a bunch of people stomping around, but I guess a ghost don't really care.
No, it don't seem to. You've wrote a series of books, which is called, if I remember right, Detours into the Paranormal. And each book is in a different area or on a different topic. Tell us about that series.
Yeah, it basically is just I've got 6 books in the series now, and it's basically just various places I go, and kind of my observations and thoughts on things. I try to highlight various like cryptids, that the cryptid sightings from an area, maybe like a couple haunted places that I go, and I just try to mix up a whole bunch of different topics in the book. The books, they're pretty light reading, usually about 140 pages, and move kind of fast. I don't I don't get real in depth in anything. They're meant to
Right.
just be light, kind of fun reading. And I've got one, my most recent one here, talks about my experiences in Florida. I've got one that talks about some of my experiences in the Smoky Mountains. One I did that talks a little bit about my trip out in Utah, Arizona, out that way.
Okay.
And they're a lot of fun for me to write. And I really enjoy writing them.
Well, they look really interesting, and I know there was several of them. Do you have a new one coming out soon?
Well, the newest one is the sixth book in the series. It's about my trips, experiences in Florida. The paper book I just put out, and the Kindle edition will be out. I think Monday, actually, the Kindle edition will come out, and it's called Adventures as a Florida Man, Searching for Skunk Apes, Water Monsters, and Sunken Treasure.
So that book is out as a paperback?
It's out as a paperback right now. The ebook will be out Monday on Amazon.
Love breaking news. That's awesome.
Yeah. Y'all are hearing it first.
And other than that, tell me about I think it was your first book was People Are Seeing Something.
Yeah, People Are Seeing Something, a survey of lake monsters in the United States and Canada. That was my first book. And, even though that was my first book, that's like still my most popular book. And, it gets more, I get more people still buying that really than even a lot of my recent stuff. And I just think it's because, these things are real. I mean, people see these creatures, and they see them all over the country, and there's more to it than people misidentifying logs in the water or otters, and certainly that stuff happens, right? I mean, it does, but
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, I was really drawn to that topic. And when I decided that I wanted to, that I was going to start writing, there people had already, and I'm not there were plenty of lake monster books out there, but there wasn't a whole lot of new ones at the time. And I don't think that you can write about these things enough, because Bigfoot might be a little more sexy, I guess, but these lake monsters, of all the cryptids, to me, this is the one that could absolutely, positively, no questions asked, exist. Right. And exist as a physical being. You don't need to bring the paranormal into it to explain anything. Like sometimes I think you do with Bigfoot, with
yes.
But you just look at all the water out there, all the sightings, all the reports. To me, I just can't see how anybody could really look at the subject and not come away and think that there's definitely something lurking in the waters.
Denver, is there one legend, one phenomenon that you're really, really wanting to dig into?
Well, it's gosh, I kind of just go, I kind of bounce around one thing to another, but yeah, I really would. Gosh, one thing. I mean, I don't really go into UFOs a whole lot. I'm certainly interested in it, but maybe at some point I'll kind of get a little more back into that. There's some there's some places, you know, in the U.S. that I want to visit that I haven't got a chance to. You know, like mysterious structures, things
Right.
like that I would kind of like to get into. And there is another subject, and yeah, I've been kicking around the idea of writing a book on it. You know, I've written a book on giants, but you know,
Right.
along with that, in the 1800s, there were a lot of so-called pygmy skeletons discovered in the U.S.
I never
And
heard that.
well, and that's the thing. A lot of people haven't heard about it, and you know, of course, you know, the mainstream writes it off as a hoax. But
Mhm.
you know, in Tennessee, especially Cumberland Plateau area, like around White County, Sparta area, Tennessee, up into Kentucky, and also in Ohio, South Dakota, there were a lot of so-called pygmy skeletons discovered. And you know, I mean, we're talking like fully developed skeletons,
Mhm.
you know, 3 4 feet tall. But you know, when people would examine them, you know, they got adult teeth, you know, worn down. You
Okay.
know, they were not children. And that's a fascinating topic to me that I might do a deep dive into it, you know, one of these days coming up. And, you know, especially when you couple that with a lot of your Native American tribes have tales of little people. Certainly the
Right.
Cherokee have a whole lot of those stories. And so, you know, I think there might be something there with all that. And if I can ever figure out a way to, you know, put what's in my head down on paper, I might get into that a little bit further.
Well, if anyone can, it's going to be you. And I got to tell you, I envy your life. I wanted that life. I just got blindsided by the current economic situation.
Yeah,
But
well, hopefully that'll pass.
Denver Michaels, and that is denvermichaels.net. And you've got a blog, and I've already told people on when I advertised this, you got to get to that blog because you have hit so much intriguing, interesting stuff. And man, you got my respect, man. I really envy what you're getting to do.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm grateful you came on. Denver Michaels, denvermichaels.net. Have a great day and be careful out there. You're driving in the mountains. Folks, just real quick, we still have the Unex subscribing thing going on. You've got to go to the unexnetwork.com and get your free subscription. All you got to do is type in a little bit of information. You get the monthly Unex newsletter, and that's got a lot of neat stuff in it. Access to the X blog. You've got a free digital copy of the magazine. Now, the magazine is also available in print, but if you're a member, it comes through the internet. You don't have to order it. I'm still waiting for my copies to come in. You don't have to order it. It just shows up in your email box 4 times a year. It's got great stories, and it's all free if you just subscribe. So onexnetwork.com, subscribe to it. I can tell you this, just in the last few hours, they gave away tickets and hotel room to a big UFO conference down in Cape Girardeau. If you're a member, you get to know about that first. It pops up on your newsletter. So I'm telling you guys, it is foolish not to sign up. onexnetwork.com. Subscribe to us today. And until next week, you all stay spooked. Good night.